Oh, and then also, oh, sorry, it's live. I apologize. Feel free to, make it like, I actually prefer this way, that it's very conversational and you can even interrupt me, you know what I mean? Follow up, so if you're okay with that, I prefer it to be like a conversation. I actually think it's more engaging too, because when it's just a straight presentation style, I actually think you kind of lose your audience as well. So
Yeah.
from I've done, so interrupt me all you want.
So Assalamu alaikum, Sister Lisa. Jazakallah khair for coming today and to talk to us about, a very important topic that's not talked about enough. And I have a few questions for you, but inshallah, feel free to speak on whatever you would like, as much as you want to, as less as you want to, whatever you are comfortable with. Inshallah.
100% comfortable with anything, so ask away.
Inshallah. So I guess my first question would be, a lot of people may think of one main thing when we talk about abuse or domestic violence. And I want to know if you could share with us some different ways that abuse takes place, what it might look like, and that we don't usually think about.
That's a great question. So we often think of abuse as being just physical and we sometimes only even take abuse seriously if it's physical, because you can see the bruise or you can see the scar, but abuse comes in so many different forms. Abuse is power and control. That is the definition of abuse. And it can come in mental, verbal, psychological, physical, financial. Financial abuse is huge and we don't talk about it. Even sexual, and that's something that's a taboo topic to talk about in the Muslim community, but it needs to be spoken about. So we often think of abuse as just a scar in your face. And I can say wholeheartedly, from someone who has been abused and in an abusive marriage, that I don't ever like to say the word physical abuse is worse, because certainly your safety is extremely important. But what I can tell you wholeheartedly is someone that has been beaten and knocked to the ground, that the emotional abuse is actually what scars you for years to come. So mental and emotional abuse is so detrimental that we need to stop brushing that under the rug and take it seriously, and how serious it affects us.
Yeah, definitely the emotional, because it's not visible, and also it's at a not smaller, but like you don't see it away.
So detrimental to someone's mental health. Obviously, I'm not, a mental health therapist, and I don't have that background, but I can tell you from firsthand experience, and every single survivor or a victim currently going through it, how detrimental emotional abuse is. It comes in small forms, and then it also actually abuse. It typically will start small and then get worse and worse and worse. It's the fear, the intimidation, the put downs. You're not good enough, or it's projecting their own insecurities and fears, and how much they're broken inside. It's projecting them onto you. So that's really what the causes of emotional abuse.
And what do you think some of the misconceptions are about abuse?
So I think the biggest misconception is just asking a victim, why doesn't she just leave? One of the most complicated answer, but a woman is actually most in danger when she tries to leave. Her life is actually on the line when she tries to leave, because what they see is their control slipping away. So their physical safety is actually in danger when she tries to leave. That's one, why she doesn't just leave. Number two, you have all the other, surface level items. It's like, if she has children, who's gonna take care of the kids? Has she been a working mom? Is there, where's she gonna go? Will she leave and then just have to come right back because she's been she's been taken care of by this man for years and gave up her career to take care of her kids. So that's another aspect. It's like, who's going to take care of her and the children? and then another aspect, which is a little bit more complicated, is abuse is very complicated. They actually break you down emotionally, and they break you down so much that you actually feel like you need them. And in fact, like, so much so that you'll even be apologizing to them after they abused you. That's how much they emotionally break you down. So you literally have like nothing left in you when you want to leave, because you have absolutely no strength. So that's the biggest misconception about victims, is why don't they just leave? If it were that simple, then we wouldn't have, such a huge issue of women being abused.
So, could you share your personal story of abuse and, sort of what you've been talking about, the thoughts that are going on, how am I going to get out, or to the point where you're thinking, how can I leave, why you're not leaving, sort of those things, and also how you were able to overcome it after, all the struggles.
I mean, it was years in the making. They think that my personal, story is, very similar to like many other women that are trapped in abusive marriages. And you don't even have to be married to be in an abusive relationship. Obviously, it's not exactly a topic we want to discuss, but it happens. I did everything the halal way, completely. Did everything like to a T. Looked for, did he pray? This man prayed all his sunnah prayers. He read Quran. He did street dawah. He gave charity. He gave khutbahs in the masjid. So I felt that I had the perfect Muslim man because of all the qualities that we're told before. He had all of those. But I recommend any marriage before, when you're looking to get married, to take your time, because had I waited and really gotten to know him like I should have and known his character, even from an Islamic perspective, we're supposed to look for good character, right? But I think culturally, we kind of just do surface level. He prays, he fasts, you know what I mean? But we forget to look at the character. And had I waited longer, I would have seen his anger issues. I would have seen the control. I would have seen the jealousy and the lack of trust that he had. All those little red flags I probably would have seen. Right into the marriage, I started noticing red flags and his anger that just wasn't normal, to get angry so quickly over nothing. But I was pregnant right away. I may have considered leaving based on the way he was acting and just cut it off quickly. I'm like, this is really bad. This isn't healthy. Let me cut it off now. Looking back, I would have probably done that, but I was already pregnant. So I felt in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to have a family soon. I have to make this work. And like most abusive marriages, it starts off small. And so you think, hey, this isn't normal, but is this enough to get divorced? Because you want to work things out. You want to make sure that you don't just give up and you move forward and you have a healthy marriage and one that doesn't end in divorce. No one wants to get divorced. But unfortunately, like all abusive marriages, the abuse got worse and worse and worse. And it was mental and emotional abuse and verbal abuse in the first year. He did not hit me or touch me at all, but punching holes in the walls, breaking things. Those are all signs that physical abuse is going to start. I didn't know that then, but I do now. It was about 2 months after the birth of our first child was the first time he knocked, and it was out of nowhere. And brand new mom, 2-month-old, you think that you would just up and leave, but you're a brand new mom and you just can't up and leave that quickly. But at least you think you can. And so I stayed. Like a lot of women, I stayed because I felt like I didn't want to break up a family. And the abuse got worse. He kind of stopped a little bit when I got pregnant, again, but the abuse happened again in the second pregnancy. Healthy baby, alhamdulillah. And the third pregnancy didn't make it because abusive men, it's not like they stop abusing you when you're pregnant. they do not stop at anything. I finally had the courage to leave in 2015. My business, the very few people knew about the abuse. My family did not know. My friends didn't know. The only people that knew was his family and my business partner. My business partner, Alat, she and her husband like did everything they could to get me out. She helped me pack up my car and leave. And I literally drove from Dallas with to Florida with 2 babies and not knowing like what I was gonna do. I did stay, and I told him that he had 1 year to change, but the kids and I would be safe. So, and he agreed, and he got therapy, anger management for 6 months. He actually continued to take care of the kids and I, but for 1 year. But when I finally decided that he's not changing, of course, like most abusive men, money gets cut off. Everything got cut off, and I had to figure it out for myself. Alhamdulillah, like, and honestly, like if it weren't for the community, like there's no way I would have made it. Like we do talk about how much this needs to be spoken about and how taboo it is and how far, how much farther we need to go as a community. But I have to give credit where credit's due. If there weren't members that really helped me and my kids, like there's no way I would be where I am today. Hands down, people that truly stepped up. I literally took charity, like, and it's very humbling to say because I come from a wonderful background, 3 college degrees, and yet I was taking charity, because I needed it. And so I think sometimes we get our pride. It's like we're so afraid to ask for help, but I needed it. And if those people weren't there for me, I don't know what I would have done, And so now, years later, I had the courage to finally speak out.
I guess another question I would have is, some people are afraid to even go to community members because there are those that say, oh, you're exaggerating. Oh, that happens with every couple. Fights happen. So what do you say to both to community members who think that way and then also to the women who are in these situations and that's what they're afraid of?
I mean, it's a valid fear. Let's be real. It's a valid fear because I honestly feel like it's 50-50 in our community. You either have a completely backwards way of thinking, or I shouldn't say 50-50 as if like half the community thinks backwards, but I mean like in a sense of it was either one or the other type of a thing. That it's either a backwards way of thinking or they have the right mindset to understand there is zero excuse for abuse. I don't care what happened. I don't care what argument happened. You're responsible for your own actions. And if you cannot control yourself, you are responsible for removing yourself from that situation until you can control yourself. There is zero excuse unless it is a means of self-defense, zero excuse to harm another individual. So there's nothing that anybody can come to me and tell me and justify their actions, why they harmed another individual. So we need to take it really seriously as a community. And one time is too many. We need to say, not tell women to continue to endure and be patient. This is not the way that we are not supposed to be abused. We were supposed to be protected by our husband. So this is something that we have to have a zero excuse policy for, and we need to take it that seriously. For the advice that for women, it's very, I don't want to give bad advice, but it's also, you have to be very careful on who you go to, and you have to go to people that you trust when you're seeking out this advice, because it even becomes a safety issue that you have to make sure you're going to people that are not going to go run back to him and just automatically. You need someone that's going to be there, your advocate, and stand by you, and will have a no excuse for abuse policy. So.
I also have, so I know that you work with different domestic violence organizations and shelters. So I actually know of certain stories of women who sometimes they come from other countries, and either they don't have family here, or they don't have they're on visas, and or they might not have a way to work to provide for themselves. So there's some of these different things that affect their decision. How would you help a woman like that out of a domestic violence situation?
So I do the best I can. I do get a lot of, like, as far as me personally, but as far as advice, I always recommend going to local services. I used them. I went to a women's safe space with my kids in the middle of the marriage. I ended up going back because he convinced me that he would change, and that's a very common behavior that they convince you, I'm going to change, I promise this will never happen again, and we go back over and over and over again. It is okay to seek help, and I would absolutely recommend calling the domestic violence hotline. I used it, calling your local mosque, and hopefully we're educating the community enough on how to handle these situations.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of nonprofit organizations that will take you in and then even try to do job placement, and try to get you back on your own feet. They usually use that as an intimidation, that they're going to take their citizenship away and immigration status. I don't want to comment on something I'm not knowledgeable about.
Mm-hmm.
I've read that they are protected in those situations. But again, I don't want to misspeak out of lack of knowledge. So.
So I guess, sorry, I'm trying to pull my thoughts together. So now you have, alhamdulillah, your business, and that's I believe that's probably where your income is coming from to provide for your kids and yourself. So a lot of women who come out of domestic violence situations, or maybe not all, but I would say they have this trauma they're carrying. They have some depression even in situations. How do they get out of that kind of slump so that they can, stand up and stand up on their own feet?
It's a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
What these women went through is extremely traumatic. It is hands down, I can say that anybody that has been through abuse, they will be forever changed. It's just the reality. We will never forget those memories, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have to live in that space anymore. There's life after abuse. And in fact, I can say wholeheartedly that I'm actually, as much as even though I remember all the trauma and I went through it, I'm actually happier from when I started before I got married. That's just the truth. I hit rock bottom in life, and I realized, like, after that, I didn't care what people thought about me. I did what was best for me and my kids. I started worrying about, putting faith in God, that God's going to take care of us. As far as, telling other survivors, it's like there is happiness, and you actually can be happier. And because it seems like like there's no way out and there's no light at the end of the tunnel, but there is life after abuse. As far as how to do it, I really want to be careful on how I say it, because everyone's different, and it's okay to heal differently and in different timelines and on your timeline. And it's a rocky road. It's just this roller coaster of emotions. And it's like, sometimes you can be happy, and then all of a sudden, I would be cooking and then I would just break down crying because of memories, and I'd be triggered and thinking about things that I went through. But I think we have to recognize it's okay to feel the pain. It's okay to cry. It's okay, but we have to make sure that we're not living in that space, and we can do our best to find happiness. It's like, if we live in that space, it's like the abuser won. They don't want us to go off and be happy and live our own life. It's like, that's what they don't want. Like, women, everybody deserves to have a peaceful and happy life with their children. It's like, so if what I recommend and what I did is Verona, which is my company, is very much a part of me. It may be a successful business and thriving, but it really actually helped me heal in many ways. It gave me something to be proud about, to work towards, to do something I love, to do something for my community. It helped me heal. So doing something positive for yourself is really empowering. Um, Recommending talking to friends and crying, crying, don't be afraid to just show your emotion and recognize that you went through trauma and it's okay to feel that pain and let it out. So I recommend doing things positive for yourself. I recommend therapy. I recommend, yeah. And again, like everybody just heals differently. So just knowing that it's going to be a rocky road and the healing should be done on your time frame and no one else's.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that was very good advice, inshallah, that benefits someone who's listening today who might be going through it or coming out of it. I think that's all the time we have today. Jazakallah khair for coming and telling your story and sharing advice for women who truly need it right now. And do you have anything else? One last thing you want to say before we officially end?
I would say maybe the last thing I want to say is to recognize that this needs to be a community effort. We need to recognize how prevalent this is. And this is not to say this happens more in Muslim communities and non-Muslim communities. No, it happens statistically about the same. But I think recognizing that and understanding that is that it's a problem in our community just as much as everybody else's. Mm-hmm. So we need to stop pretending like this isn't a huge issue. And we also need to stop sugarcoating this issue as well. We need to step in when this happens and when we witness this and have an absolute no excuse for abuse policy. And again, this needs to be a community effort in order to tackle this.
Well, Jazakallah khair. And Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah. Thank you so much.